Welcome back to the Wisdom Within Workforce Analytics and Business Intelligence, and part 2 of our panel discussion with leading experts in the field of workforce analytics and planning. As the discussion continues, our panel addresses the importance of workforce intelligence as a foundation for workforce planning, why spreadsheet data isn't actionable, and how to tie workforce analytics to corporate goals.
Russ, when you look at workforce analytics, what does it measure? What should people be measuring, and what's the focus? What's the spearhead there?
Yeah, the tendency is to sometimes measure efficiency within HR, and measuring headcount has been traditional because they think if you measure headcount, you can measure the costs of your company. And I think what is happening now is we're evolving out of measuring efficiencies in HR to measuring how well the workforce is contributing to the success of the company. So on the cost side of things, driving attrition down will save you money. But retaining your key talent in your company is paramount, and also attracting and recruiting that talent is where I think some of the biggest goals can be had. Now, workforce analytics is a foundation for workforce planning and eventually strategic workforce planning. And it's are you going to be ready with a workforce of the future to meet those future needs and goals of the company? And that's really where it's all headed. But right now, most companies, Doug mentioned, are just starting to grasp what kind of measurements they need to start measuring. And there are, ANSI standard in draft form right now for workforce analytics. They're ANSI standard metrics, which it's not that many, and there's a good platform to start with.
So sometimes we have to remind our teams that just getting the analytics is not the project in and of itself. It might be where their project ends, but it really is to help drive business decisions. So who are the consumers of analytics? You put systems into place, you run nice reports, sometimes it goes into PowerPoint or it goes into your dashboard. Who are the end consumers of this type of tools? You talked about, when we talked beforehand, there's different audiences that might want to look at the data. Who do you see as your end customer inside of a company for the use of analytics?
So, another great question, and it's as varied as an organization is you go out there, but typically you'll have key managers, and they'll be interested in more of dashboard type reports. They just want to see the ultimate important 4 or 5 key performance indicators that they want to watch. You'll have analysts in organizations that, again, in the old days maybe were crunching the data, but now are using some of these technologies to support the organization and bring it to bear, and then report again some of that up to upper management. IT is involved, of course, whether they're the consumers or not. A lot of time IT, they don't want to be. By the way, more and more organizations, that's not what they want to do. That's why these technologies are so valuable. It reduces the overhead in IT. And then the overall line managers around the country, again, that have to support those business lines in addition to reporting it up to management. So there's a variety of different technologies, there's a variety of different types of ways to consume, and there's a variety of different people in different places. So that's my broad answer, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think it is probably broad too. Either of you have something to say about the consumers of the data?
Yeah, all too often, analytics, especially workforce analytics, are kind of locked onto or buried in the analyst's desk. And I think the real challenge with workforce analytics is that what I call the last mile of analytics, and that's actually delivering actionable analytics to decision makers, so that they can see the things that are happening, the trends. They can see trends for themselves instead of having that being translated to them by an individual. There's a bottleneck for that, so you couldn't possibly have enough analysts to satisfy every decision maker in a company. So delivering the analytics to the decision maker in a format that they can consume and they can actually make decisions on, I think is the challenge.
Mm-hmm. No, I think you hit it right there. Having the data, putting it in a pretty chart, a pretty graph, and you send it out in a spreadsheet, and you look at it and say, oh yeah, that looks really nice. Now what do I do with it? is making that data actionable, and I think that's part of the role of HR, to tell them not only what the information is, but what trends are we seeing, how can they turn that into an actionable item. But from an audience standpoint, from at least in our organization, I think it's a broad brush. It's really everyone that needs it through all the HR functions, be it staffing, comp, benefits, HR operations, field HR, but it's also that frontline manager, the line of business leader, all the way up to the executives. We're seeing it more and more, hunger for that information and willingness to partner with HR into turning that information into actionable items.
And for me, I think one of my pet peeves when I look at data is when I don't have enough context for the information. So if I'm, reading a study the other day about a plant that was, they were having problems with productivity, spikes and valleys, and they were trying to figure out, well, what the productivity was, and everybody had a voice, everybody had a reason. Oh, well, it was that new equipment, it was the this, it was the that, and it wasn't until they started putting, the trends side by side and really layering on what was going on throughout the organization, where was, okay, we can't blame the supply chain, we had all the inventory we needed, the equipment we trained it the same way in this plant as we did in that plant over there, and yet this one plant had a productivity issue. And it wasn't until they overlaid the workforce analytics on top of it that they found out that, well, several of those spikes were the waves of the flu epidemic that came through their plant. And so, if they'd walked into HR probably could have said, well, yeah, there was, 10 times more sick days on those days. But you can't silo things completely, because then you're only getting a small picture of it. You really need to be able to put information into context, and I think it's important to be able to tie workforce numbers to other numbers in the organization. Now, Ross, I know you've worked with some customers that was key to them. Can you talk about tying analytics to the corporate goals, or?
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at revenue goals, a lot of times you need to have a product to sell, and you need to have salespeople to take it to market. And if you've got ambitious goals there, then you need to look at the supply of talent you're going to have for building new products, and what is the trending there. So using perhaps predictive analytics, are you going to have enough supply of talent to meet the demand? And then on the sales side, do you have enough salespeople and sales management to deliver on those? And even you can tie it all the way through to your marketing analytics to say, are you delivering enough leads into that sales department to generate this? So it's all around predictability. Business is based upon predictability, and the economy is that way. Wall Street's this way. The more you can predict based on your prior history and pull these facts together, then you have a better chance of making smart bets, investments, if you will, that will pay off down the road.
To watch the conclusion of this discussion, visit acquire.com.